Well, with the return of school in full swing, many of us are seeing things we haven't seen in a few months. School buses are all over the roads. So it's a good time to review Michigan's law regarding school bus safety. And to do that, we talked to Tom Sinas from Sinas James Law Firm. Hi, Tom.
Hi, Todd. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. There's been some recent changes in this law too, but let's start with the basics. What is the basic rules regarding drivers and school buses?
All right. The basic rule and the most important rule is not new. And that's where we should start. And I'm just going to read it. This is the rule about when you have to stop and how long you have to stop. It says, this is our state statute that says the operator of a vehicle overtaking or meeting a school bus that has stopped and is displaying two alternately flashing red lights located at the same level shall bring the vehicle to a full stop not less than 20 feet from the school bus and shall not proceed until the school bus resumes motion or the visual signals are no longer actuated. So a lot of legal words in there, but some very simple concepts. You have to stop. You have to remain stopped. You have to be stopped within 20 feet. And the critical thing is the alternating flashing red lights. I think sometimes people think that you have to see that displayed stop sign arm that comes off of a lot of buses, but that is not the case. It's the red light that requires people to stop. The only exception to this is if someone is operating a vehicle on the other side of a road where there is a physical barrier, or as the statute says, clearly indicated dividing section. If you're driving on that opposite side of the road, but only if that physical barrier or dividing section is in between you and the other lane, are you not required to stop? So what that means is that if you're going the other direction on a normal road, you still have to follow that basic rule of coming to a stop and remaining stopped until the bus moves or is no longer displaying those stop lights.
Okay, so seems pretty basic. Stay at least 20 feet away, come to a complete stop, don't start until they start moving again. What about the changes in the law recently? How has that affected this?
So there was a law that went into effect in October of 2021. And this didn't change that basic safety rule, but it did allow school buses to be equipped with what are called stop arm cameras, but you really think of them as basically just cameras, devices that can make either photographic or video recordings of cars that may be violating that basic safety rule. And I think the idea here was that while we had this safety rule in the books for a long time, it was relatively hard to enforce, right? Because the bus drivers, who we all know are busy enough, weren't necessarily in a position to be able to assist in identifying the cars that weren't stopping. So now, as of October of 2021, buses can be equipped with these cameras, and the recordings of these cameras are admissible in a case against the driver who violates that stopping rule. And the other thing that the statute makes clear is that if the person, the defendant in the case against them, where the rule has been violated, if that person is the owner of the vehicle, then there's what we call a rebuttable presumption that the owner was the person driving. So we're adding to the law some enforcement mechanisms so that we can actually enforce this really important law and do it in a more efficient way, I think with the hopes of bringing down the incidents of violation of the safety rules.
And I'm sure a lot of bus drivers and parents will be glad to hear that this is more enforceable. But when it comes to someone actually violating that rule, what consequences are out there?
Well, of course, it depends on what happens. The violation of the safety rules are what we call a civil infraction. Some people think of that as a ticket, but which also does result in points being added to the person's driving record. So there's real consequences there if the rule is violated. But if, heaven forbid, the rule is violated and someone, perhaps a child, is injured, then the consequences for the driver are, of course, very severe. There can be criminal penalties, more stiffer, of course, than a ticket. And then, of course, there's civil liability. And under Michigan law, a driver who violates a state statute, so this safety rule, for example, that violation of the statute is evidence that the driver was careless or negligent. So there's a lot at stake here, of course. That's why we have these rules that require people to do certain things. where we have buses with kids getting on and off. And so it's one of those things that you don't want to find yourself in the situation where you were on the wrong side of the rule.
Well, I think we can all agree that safety first is key. We want to keep these children safe. And now that you know a little bit more about that law and the fact that you could be being recorded, hopefully you'll abide by those rules. Tom, thank you so much. If people want more information, where can they go?
They can find us online at www.sinusdramus.com. They can shoot us an email at info@sinusdramus.com or give us a call, 616-301-3333.